hold up, I am on my way, I'm in motion. Let's go to the ocean. Yeah, let's go outside. We can hang out on the beach without freezing. Yeah, isn't that...
Welcome to Crafty Beach. This is Julie. Today I have gathered 10 of my favorite coastal or beachy patriotic DIYs for you to give you some ideas for the upcoming holidays. First, we have a coastal flag DIY. What I have planned is coastal 4th of July decorations. So I have like a coastal farmhouse theme in my house, and I like to give that same beachy vibe to most of my decorations. And I'm going to do that today with some patriotic decorations that are also beach themed. So my idea is to make a flag out of all of these little frames that I got at the Dollar Tree. So they're kind of like little box frames with these little home pop-outs. And I was able to get 6 of them all the same, and I thought that would make a really cute flag. Now, I've been trying to brainstorm for weeks about what I could texturize them with. I really wanted them to have texture, and I was having a lot of trouble finding something from the Dollar Tree that had texture that would work in these little frames. And that's when I was in the toy department, and I found these little Lego base plates that are 5 by 5, and they fit perfectly into these little frames. So I was so excited to find that. I got 5 of the little Lego plates and 6 of the frames. I want to do the top left corner as a flag theme, and I would like that to be a different texture. So I'm just popping out the little home plate on all of those and leaving the back surface. And then I thought this might work for the star part. It is a peel and stick. It kind of looks like a wood tile. I guess you could use for your wall. So I'm trying to cut out a piece of that. And I think that might work to give me like a different vibe for the top corner. I'm going to paint all of it. So just kind of seeing if that'll work. I cut it the same size as the Lego blocks that fit in there almost perfectly. And that's when I could tell a little bit of the flower design peeking out along the sides. And so I'm trying in vain to see if I can paint really neat and not get any on the frame. But I don't know how people do it, but it's not me. I have to tape it or it's going to be a mess. So I'm just going around with painter's tape from the Dollar Tree and taping off the frame, and then just giving a very thin coat of my ivory chalk paint along the edges, and I do that 5 times. So there we go. I got it all painted, and then halfway through that I was like, there's very little that you could see. If I would have went around the edges with like a white paint pen, gosh, that would have been so much easier. But live and learn. Okay, so I'm just cleaning that all up, and then I want to make the little white Lego plates, the like American flag, red and white striped. So I'm going to use this painter's tape from the Dollar Tree, and I am just going to paint off some stripes. These are going to be my top 2 plates, so I'd like them to be the same, so I'm just going to line them up next to each other. And I'm going to use this Crimson Waverly chalk paint from Walmart. And the foam brush totally did not work to get in on that Lego plate for all that texture. So I have to go in with a brush with bristles. And 1 coat is basically all it takes. I was happy to find white. So it was pretty easy to paint over. But it is available like in all different colors. I was just thinking, how could I get better texture than this? This is going to give me great texture. And that's what I kept thinking with this project. I want to do a flag, but I want to do a flag with texture. So those are my top 2 plates. And just cleaning up my mess there. And now I can do my bottom 3 plates. So I'm going to kind of continue that red stripe from the top, which was like 2 rows. along the top of the bottom 3. And then I'm going to use just a piece to space it and then tape off on the bottom there. So I'm going to give another like 1.5 stripes. And my painter's tape from the Dollar Tree is kind of wide, so that kind of determines the width of my stripes, but I think it works. So I'm just giving 1 coat of that red crimson chalk paint on all of my flag pieces. And I kind of have a rustic, you know, vibe in my house, so I don't care if it's like perfectly painted. It's not really going to be with all the texture and the painter's tape, but close enough. And I think that turned out really good. So next up is my star part I want to do for the top left corner. And I am going to use this agave chalk paint by Waverly. Since I have a coastal theme, I use this color a lot in my house. And I think it's a fun take on 4th of July to customize it to my house. So you can always use, you know, like the navy or the royal blue. But I dried that with my dryer and it melted. So this stuff cannot withstand heat at all. So here I am again. I cut another piece out the same size. And this time I'm going to paint it with this agave, and I am not going to use any heat. I'm going to set it aside and let that dry on its own. The chalk paint dries pretty fast anyway. And these Lego plates can handle heat. So I'm using my like super hot glue gun, and I am just gluing all of those base plates down. And now I think we got a good dry, and I'm afraid to use any hot glue because of the heat situation. So I'm just going to use some tacky glue because that was actually hollow inside to make sure that sits down. And then I'm just going to peel and stick that to the back of my frame. Just touching up around the edges there to make sure you can't see any flowers. And here I'm going to go through and I want to bring out that texture. So I'm going to go in with my ivory chalk paint by Waverly and just kind of go over those little Lego bumps to show that texture, to make it like really like noticeable. I don't want it to look like, you know, just Legos on my wall. Even though that'd be really cute, like in a playroom or a kid's room. But I want this for like the main part of my house, and I really want to bring out that texture. So just kind of a dry brush of the ivory chalk paint, and then I'm going back over it with just a baby wipe to take away some of the paint where I think there's like too much. And you know me, I like to distress everything. So I'm distressing the agave blue part too. And I have my flag there. Now, I was thinking, is this going to be like, you know, my final, I couldn't decide if I liked it like this or not, but for my star, I decided to use a starfish. I got these 3 packs of starfish from my Dollar Tree recently. They had a lot of beach decor, and since I can't use hot glue, I'm going to use some of this super glue just to glue this starfish down. And I think that really looks cute with the coastal vibe. But then I was like, you know, I think I need something more. So I have this nautical rope from the Dollar Tree, and I thought that would be another interesting texture to maybe make the white stripes with, to make it with the coastal rope. So it's kind of thick. I'm trying to cut through there with my Dollar Tree scissors and peel the little tape off the end. And it looks like, you know, I could do 1 row would be 2 ropes. So I'm going to try that. First of all, I got some more powerful scissors because it took a lot to saw through this rope. And that's what I do. I cut 2, and I kind of like that. I think it gives the rest of the frames like a coastal vibe. And it's another whole texture. So now we have like the rope texture, the bumpy texture. We have like the tile texture. We have the texture of the starfish. And so I really like that. So it takes about 4 of those to do a frame. And so I am going to take this nautical rope And there we go. I'm going to cut out 4 for each frame. And since the Lego plates can handle the heat, I'm going to go in with my hot glue gun and just put down a line of hot glue and glue down one of my ropes. And I don't care that the edges are a little frayed. I think that actually adds to the like coastal vibe of the sign. And so I am just going to go through and I am going to glue down all of the ropes to my little flag sign. And I wasn't super happy with it up until this point, but the rope was definitely the touch that I think it needed. And I really like how this turned out. Took a lot of hot glue, but I just learned I could do 2 rows at a time there and put 2 down at a time. And that totally sped things up. And I'm just going to leave the frames that natural wood. I think that goes with the coastal vibe. And I was trying to decide, I have hangers on the back of these, if I wanted to hang them all separately or if I wanted to put them together as one big giant art piece. And the frames were extremely square. So I was like, you know, I think I can probably do this. Maybe with some help of like some popsicle sticks to help the structure. I could make one big, large print. Just turning them over and seeing if they'll line up properly, making sure I get my starfish on the right side, which is actually the left side, and seeing if that would probably work. And I think it would. And so I'm going to go for the one large frame. It'll make it easier to hang or to sit if it was one piece. So I'm just using hot glue and I am just attaching the top and bottom. They're pretty lightweight, so I think hot glue is going to hold up here. And then I'm just doing hot glue to connect the sides. Once I have the 3 pieces, and I'm just gonna glue those all together. And this part was way easier than I imagined. I think it's because my frames were so square and everything lined up perfectly. And then I'm gonna use these medium-sized popsicle sticks from Walmart. And I am just going to glue those along the back structure at the seams to give it more stability. And I had to cut down some of those. They're super easy to cut with just scissors. And I am doing all of my seams with the popsicle sticks. And I left the hanger on there so I can hang it, but look, it also sits on its side. I hope you enjoyed that flag DIY. Up next, we have a coastal Uncle Sam gnome DIY. Let's do it. Okay, up next, I'm going to use this chalkboard from the Dollar Tree, these 2 mop heads from the Dollar Tree, some knobs from Walmart, and a random piece of wood I had laying around, and a starfish. So what I'm going to do, first I'm going to take the little rope off my sign. I'm going to try to make a coastal Uncle Sam gnome is my idea. So it's really hard to find any like square or rectangular signs at Dollar Tree right now. So the only thing I could really find was this chalkboard, but I think it is the perfect size. And I'm just using some Goo Gone there, trying to get that tag off the back. I think I'm gonna actually decorate the back, and I'm thinking this rectangle shape would be great for Uncle Sam's hat. So I am just using some ivory chalk paint by Waverly, and I've been working on this bottle for a while. It's like the very end. I'm trying to get every drop out of there, and I'm just going all over with one coat of that ivory chalk paint, and I'm going over everything because it was black, and I think that's going to be easier to paint color over than the black. And so I did finally finish that off. So here is a new bottle of my ivory chalk paint by Waverly. And I am going over and giving a second coat of the chalk paint and a dry. And I could have done the front of the chalkboard, but I thought it might be more consistent and like the writing wouldn't show through if I did the back. So that's why I'm doing the back of the sign. And then I needed a long piece of wood for like the brim of Uncle Sam's hat. And I just had this random piece of wood laying around. It's the bottom of a Valentine's Day sign that fell apart this year, and I saved it, and I'm glad I did because I was having trouble finding something. But I know like Dollar Tree does sell like the little signs that are long and skinny like that. So sometimes you just got to use whatever you have. So that is what I'm going to use, and I gave that a coat of the ivory chalk paint as well. And I've got pretty good coverage on the rectangle now. So I'm just going to use a piece of painter's tape to space out a line. And I am going to do stripes. Going up and down the hat, I'm going to do flag stripes. So I'm just going to do red and white. So I'm going to use this crimson chalk paint by Waverly. I'm going to be using the same colors on all of our projects today to make it really cohesive and go together nicely. So one coat of the crimson chalk paint giving me my stripes. And then on the brim of the hat, I was thinking I want to do stars. Now, I have a Cricut, and I totally could have made stencils here, but I was trying to show that you could do this from Dollar Tree. So I got these stars from the Dollar Tree, and I am going to try to treat them just like I would treat my Cricut stencils. So I peeled off the back of the star stickers, and then I'm going to use just transfer paper. You could always just use masking tape or whatever you have, something that's not super sticky, to transfer the stars to my sign. I want to keep them, you know, kind of all lined up and to kind of do a pattern along the hat there. So I'm kind of offsetting the stars, kind of like they would be on a flag. And this would have been a lot easier if I would have used my Cricut, because I didn't realize quite how sticky these stars are. I mean, it worked and you can do it, but it does require a lot of patience. And I think a star stencil or making stars on my Cricut, the vinyl would have been a little bit more removable. But here we go. So I am just lining those all up, and I just offset them a little bit, and I'm just using all of my Cricut techniques here to try to get those all on there. And then what I'm going to do, since I've already painted that part of this sign white, I'm going to paint blue over it to do the blue with the white stripes. But again, I'm going to use the agave blue because that kind of goes with the colors of my house. So I got all my stars on there. And I try to act quickly. I got to fix one there because I didn't want the stars to stick very much, but they actually did stick really. I don't know, maybe my original ivory paint was not that dry, I'm not sure. But here I am going over with that agave chalk paint by Waverly, and I'm just leaving the sides and the ends red because, hey, that goes with the color of the sign, and it'll make the project a little bit easier. And here I am weeding. Now, it looks like I'm not struggling that much, but this is actually like 5 times speed. So I was. And whenever I went in with my little Cricut weeder, it was scraping the white paint off of the sign and leaving a little red. But luckily, I go for a rustic vibe, so I think it'll be okay. And it's just the stickers were really, really stuck on there. But I'm starting to get a rhythm here, and we got all the stars off. And then I'm just going to go over it, since it was banged up from that, with the sanding block from the Dollar Tree, and rough that up a little bit. And your girl needed some Coke there. So our stripes on our hat are dry, and they look fantastic. And so that is going to be the hat of our Uncle Sam gnome. And that is going to be the top of his hat, or the brim, I guess you would say. And my painter's tape did pull up some of the paint, and so I'm trying to fix it here towards the bottom. And then it's going to be okay because, of course, your girl's going to distress it a little bit. So just trying to make that a little less obvious. And I didn't bring the stripes all the way down because I do have plans there for the rest of my Uncle Sam. And I'm trying to make sure that's dry before I move on. And then here I go in with that ivory chalk paint. And of course your girl distresses it because I like everything to be coastal, rustic looking. And then I'm going to go over that with my baby wipe and wipe off the excess. And I use these baby wipes from Dollar Tree for everything. I use them to get the paint off my hands. I use them to distress things constantly. I love them. And they work better than like a cleaning wipe that's going to take like all of the paint off. That's not what I want. Then I'm just going to go in with my sanding block from the Dollar Tree and I'm going to rough up the edges and make him look a little bit more rustic there. Okay. So I thought it would be really cute to use a knob for the nose. So it is actually a cabinet knob that I picked up at Walmart. And it was $1.97, I think, for two. So $1 for a knob. And I just need to use my drill to drill a hole in my sign so that I can attach my nose. Now, it really doesn't have to be this durable. You could always just glue it on, but I thought I would do it right. So I am going to drill a hole into my sign. I'm just eyeballing center, and I am going to attach the knob there, and the knob is going to be my little gnome Sam nose. So it comes with screws, but you know, it's probably to go through like an entire like cabinet or drawer. So the screws are way too long for this little skinny chalkboard. And I soon find that out after I screwed in there. And then I'm just like, whoa, 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 this is never going to work. So I go through my husband's stash of screws and I find a little short screw. And again, if you can't get that to work, like totally like hot glue or wood glue that thing on, it would totally be the same. And then I'm going to have like the brim of the hat come down over his eyes like I would on a gnome. And then I'm going to use these two microfiber mop heads from the Dollar Tree for his beard. I use these for my bee gnome that I did for my bee tier tray. And it gave a really nice gnome beard effect. So I thought that this would work well, and the width is perfect for my hat there. So I am just going to hot glue the left one down on one side of the nose, and I'm going to do the same on the right side. And I love how this guy turned out. It actually turned out really big too, like quite a good size. Now the back, I don't want the beard to be like separated into two parts. So I'm trying to find something that I can use. And this would be really lightweight. Is just, I had some white cardstock and I'm just cutting that to size. And I'm just going to glue that with hot glue onto the back of my mop heads there, just to make sure that the two sides of the beard stay together. And this actually worked quite well. I was going to do a circle for the head, but then I realized that I didn't really need a head at all because most of his face is going to be beard and it can just be free hanging. And that was a good decision. I like that, the way that I structured this. Then I'm like, you know, he kind of looks like Santa. And Uncle Sam has more of a like pointy, I think, goatee type beard. So I am just using my scissors and I am cutting that more of an angle on the side and giving him more of a pointy beard. And this stuff does shed like crazy. Just do the best you can and trim it up. And I'm just kind of eyeballing the symmetry on the sides of the beard there and just trimming as I go. And then I think I'm going to have the brim of the hat come down and smush over where his eyes would be. I may have went a little too high on the beard there above his nose, because of course he's not going to have a beard above his nose, but I kind of need him to. So I'm just going to trim. I'm still trimming the sides to make sure it's even. And here I'm like, how much can I smush this down? That's when I realized it was probably a little too fluffy up there. And so I'm just giving him a little bit of a haircut on the top of his beard to make it where I can smash that down over where his eyes would be a little bit more. Don't want there to be a lot of space on top of his nose, just a little bit of space there. And I'm not going to do anything to the back of my wood sign there with the stars. It was kind of rough from being an old piece of decoration, and you're not going to be able to see it. And then I want it to go down even lower, so here I am trimming him again. That's why I'm saying I probably could have went down a little bit lower. I did want it to be on top of his nose, but only a little bit. I think that's going to work. And it's really hard to get this all in frame because this actually turned out really big. So I'm going to use wood glue from the Dollar Tree, and I went a little too crazy there. And I'm also going to use hot glue. That'll give me the long-term, short-term hold. And I'm just going to glue that on. And clean up some of my glue. I don't know what I was thinking going all the way to the sides. It didn't need to go quite that far. And this is where I'm kind of regretting the back of the sign. Looks pretty rough. I kind of like the back of my things to be more finished, but I think it probably was a good idea to work on the back just to get more of a solid color to paint those red and white stripes on. And I'm just kind of giving him a little trim around his nose to make sure that his nose is visible. And then I want to use like one of these starfish that I got in the 3-pack from the Dollar Tree and attach that to his hat somehow. But then I thought he needed something extra. So I got some of this burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree and just cut a piece. And then it was a little too sheer. You could really see through it. So I think I'm going to double that up and just do that around the top or the bottom, I guess, of his hat. And I'm just going to attach that with hot glue, both layers. And I'm just going to wrap that around the base of his hat. And this step totally wasn't necessary, but I think it did give another texture, another little beachy vibe to my gnome Sam. And then I'm just going to wrap that around and hot glue that to the other side of my hat. And I'm using one of those little silicone spatulas from the Dollar Tree. They're great for like trying not to burn yourself like crazy with the hot glue. And then I'm just attaching the same hanger that was on there before, just pushing it through and tying it back on. It's just twine to hang my Sam with. And then I have the rest of that ivory cardstock, and I'm like, I might as well just put this over the back, and it kind of covers some of the craziness going on in the back of my sign a little bit and makes me happy. So I just attached that with hot glue, and then the final touch is going to be that little starfish that I want to attach. And I think that turned out really good. I think that was the final little detail that definitely gives it a beach vibe. But trying to find a spot to hot glue was the thing. The middle didn't really touch, so I just hot glued the little legs down to the brim of the hat. And he is completed, and I absolutely love this. That Uncle Sam is so cute. I love him. And then up next, we have some coastal sea creatures, shelf sitters, 3 of them to be exact. 3 little just wood box signs from Dollar Tree. And I want to do a little display with some of these wooden shapes that I got from the Dollar Tree. I got sea turtles, starfish, and seahorse. So I'm like, why is that word escaping me? And I'm just kind of seeing, do I want one? Do I want two? One's probably good. And I thought this would look really cute. Now, not all Dollar Trees had the beach stuff. I got it recently there. Only one of my like 5 Dollar Trees had them. And I do live near the beach, so I don't know if you're going to be able to find them or not. But I love how this turned out. So I am going to paint one crimson, one ivory, one agave on the chalk paint that I got at Walmart by Waverly. And then I want to do patterns on them. So I'm going to use these star stickers again that I got at the Dollar Tree. And I did not like how they worked for Uncle Sam. So I am going to try to paint them. I've heard that you can paint them. And so that is what I'm trying to do. I'm going over them with chalk paint. I don't know if chalk paint was the right idea. I still struggled with this. Cricut would have still been easier, but I was trying to do this with just Dollar Tree stuff. So that's why I used the stickers. And so I painted a sheet of them ivory. I'm painting one of the boxes ivory. That was the easiest box to paint because it's already white, so the sides only needed one coat and a couple coats on top to cover up the pattern that was on there. And I'm just using my heat gun to give that all a good dry. Then I want to do this crimson color. I love this color. It is so bright and pretty. And then I'm like, ooh, that is going to be hard to cover up with red. So I'm going to go in with some of the white to try to cover up that pattern because that sign was really busy before I go in with the crimson. And I think that will make it take less paint. And then I'm going to peel off the back of my star stickers again. And I am going to try to paint these stickers the crimson color. And what I'm thinking is I want to do like red, white, blue, but I want to switch it up. So red and white would be stripes, but I want to switch it up. So I'm going to make them red with white stars, white with red stars, and the blue would normally be stars, but I want to switch it up, so I'm going to make that one stripes. So that's my plan, and I'm just going over and giving that a good coating of the crimson chalk paint until I have good coverage on the sign and my sheet of star stickers. This project probably involved the most painting. There was a lot of painting on this project, but I think they turned out really good. Okay, so my third block sign I want to do in this beautiful agave color. If you want to do more of a traditional flag blue, you do you. But I like how this goes with my house, and I've been using it on most of my nautical decorations, and I love how these 3 colors look together. I think that they complement each other really well. So I'm not going to do star stickers on this one. I am just going to do the box sign. And these signs are great for $1. They're all the same size, and it's going to make a really nice coordinating set for not a lot of money. So then I'm kind of deciding who gets which creature. And then I'm going to use some of this spackle from the Dollar Tree to fill in the holes because they were kind of like wood charms. And I don't want those holes to be in my little wood cutouts. And I'm going to go over my seahorse with the agave color. And I'm just kind of mixing and matching the colors to make them different than the sign they're on and make them complementary. And I'm going to make my sea turtle ivory. And then I'm trying to decide, oh yeah, I want to make my starfish the crimson. So these are the raw wood, and they paint like super easy with the chalk paint and fast. And I'm just going to go over all of those with my heat gun and speed them up just a little bit. And set those aside, let them finish drying, and I can start working on my block signs and the patterns that I want to make. And so I am peeling off my star stickers. Now, the paint bled and kind of like they were kind of blobby, the stars, when I would pull them off the paper, and I was having to use my finger to break the extra paint off. That's the only part I didn't like about painting the stickers. But if you have patience, like, this is totally possible. Next time, though, I think I would use my Cricut. But the advantage of this is that I got the colors exactly right because I used the actual paint from the different signs. So I just did a kind of an alternating star pattern. Just kind of eyeballed the whole thing. And then I'm just going through with some of the ivory chalk paint to distress my red. And a baby wipe because I went a little too crazy with the distressing. And I probably should have distressed it before I put the stars on. But just getting that one the way I like it. Then some of the stars didn't really seem like they were down too well. So I'm just going to go over with a coat of this matte Mod Podge, and just to make sure that my star stickers stay down. And just giving that a start on the drying process. Then I'm going to do the opposite. Well, first I'm going to distress it first to see if that works better than what I just did. And so I'm actually just distressing the ivory with the agave, and I think those look good together, and that's nice and complementary. And I'm going to use the star stickers that I painted crimson, and I am going to do the same pattern that I did on the other sign, where I'm just going to do the four corners in the centers and between those, and then fill in the alternate spaces, just kind of like a flag where the stars kind of alternate where they're located. And same thing that happened with my white stickers. There was like tons of extra paint that I was pulling off the sides to make sure that I got my nice pointy star look. That was probably the only obstacle of painting the stars, was the extra bleed. I don't know if I would have used acrylic paint or a different kind of paint if there would have been less bleed, but it worked. And here I am just finishing up that pattern of my white with red stars. All right, using my little ladybug there. And I'm just going to go in again with a coat of Mod Podge to make sure those star stickers stay down. And the red paint did flake off those a little bit, so I was getting a little bit of mess there on my white, but nothing I can't fix. Okay, so here is my last block, my agave, and I'm just going to do stripes. Now my painter's tape is way too wide for these little blocks to do stripes, so I thought it would be fun to do just maybe like pin stripes. Who says the stripes have to be the same size, right? So I'm going in with that ivory chalk paint and giving stripes. And then while I'm at it, I'm just distressing the sides of my agave blue sign with that white. A little too hard on that side. And just fixing that and giving my stripes a good dry. And then I'm going to go in with a second coat of the ivory chalk paint to make sure that my stripes are nice and bright. And drying that with my heat gun and pulling off my painter's tape to give me some nice clean stripes. And then of course I want to distress that because that's what I do. And then my baby wipe to wipe off the excess. And I really like how these turned out. The colors are super complementary. They're all different. They all coordinate really well. They look really good where I put them. And here I am cleaning up that little red paint speckle mess that I kind of had. And now I'm trying to decide what to do with my little wood creatures. Of course, I got to distress it. So I'm going to distress the white with the blue on my turtle. And I'm going to distress the crimson with the ivory. I just tried to pick colors that I thought would look good distressing, and the agave with the ivory as well. And then I'm looking for my white paint pen because I want to go in. The starfish had little circles on it, a little pattern, and I thought that would be cute to bring that out with a paint pen. And that is what I'm doing. I'm just going in and making little circles with my paint pen. And I'm glad I did that. It really brought out a lot of fun texture and interest on the starfish. And I'm going to kind of do like the white on red, the red on blue, the blue on white. And for maximum contrast, just making sure everything is good and dry. And again, the red speckles, I'm just trying to touch that up with a little bit of the ivory chalk paint to fix that. And that one will have my little blue seahorse. I'm not sure if they're totally dry yet though, so I'm not going to sit that one on there yet. Okay, it's time to attach them. So I'm just going to use hot glue, and I'm going to hot glue down my little sea turtle onto my red sign. Make sure my starfish is good and dry before I touch it. I don't want to mess up my paint on that. And I'm just going to use hot glue to hot glue down my starfish. And this project did take a while just because of all the painting. But I love how they turned out. I think they're so cute. And I'm going to glue down my little seahorse. And there we have it. All done with my little nautical patriotic decorations. So I really hope you're enjoying these coastal 4th of July DIYs. If you are, don't forget to like, comment your favorite below, and don't forget to subscribe. Up next is a set of coastal stacked books from sea to shining sea. Okay, so next up, I want to make like one of those really cool stacked books, but not one of the little mini ones, like a big version of it. So I got these trays at the Dollar Tree, and they actually have stars cut out the end. So I thought that was perfect for 4th of July. So I'm going to do one red, one white, and one blue, but I have a coastal house, and so I've been doing a lot of my 4th of July decorations with this beautiful agave color blue instead of like a royal or a navy blue. And I love how it looks with the red and white. And so I kind of want this one to be a coastal feel. And so I am going with this color instead of a different color of blue. But you do you do whatever kind of blue you want. But these turned out so great. So I just do all 4 sides of my book. And then I only have to do kind of just the rim there in case the books are not stacked directly on top of each other. I don't want the bare wood to be seen. And so I'm just making sure I got a good coat all over of my agave chalk paint from Waverly. And that looks good. And I can move on to my next book. And I am going to do white chalk paint by Waverly. Now, this chalk paint, I guess the lid's been left off of it too much because it was thick. It was so thick. I really had trouble working with it. So when I was done with this project, it went straight in the trash. I'm just going to have to replace it. Thinking I must have not had the lid on good or not put the lid on in enough time because it was not the right consistency chalk paint. I kind of wish I hadn't done this color, but it already started, so I kind of went with it. And same thing, I painted all 4 sides and just around the rims. And for the 3rd book, I am going to do it in this crimson chalk paint by Waverly. It's a beautiful color of red. And then first I'm like, I want to do something special with the top because this is going to be the top book. So then I was like, it needs a flag. So flags are so easy to paint. So I'm just taking some of this painter's tape from the Dollar Tree, and I am just doing a little square rectangle up in the corner that won't get any of this beautiful red paint. And the rest can, because then I'll just use it for the red stripes in the flag. So I got that good and taped off, and I'm going to go in with one of my little foam brushes. And same thing, I'm going to paint all 4 sides. I love the little star cutout. It really gave an extra touch of patriotism to these little stacked books. And I'm doing all 4 sides. Now what's different on this one is it's going to be exposed. So I am painting the whole top, and I'm painting it all red. And I'm going to go back and put stripes on that so it'll look like a flag. So just making sure that is good and dry with my heat gun. And the red, you know, it's hard to get good coverage, so I'm just touching up the front of the book to make sure that's a solid color of red. And it's time to take off my painter's tape. Oh, maybe not yet. I'm going to go ahead and do the stripes. So I'm going to use the skinnier painter's tape that I picked up at Walmart and do the stripes with that. Then I'm like, oh yeah, I want the red to kind of be carried over like the binding of a book from the side. And so I didn't want my stripes where I had them, so I am fixing that. And I am just eyeballing these stripes. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just where I think that they would be. And then I am going to use that white chalk paint again to try to paint all my stripes. This paint was terrible. I'm so glad to be done with it. It was so thick. And so I am just painting on my white stripes. And trying to get good coverage. And trying to speed up my first coat. I mean, it's a little harder to paint white over red than it would be to paint red over white. But since I was painting the book red, I just kind of went for it. So I'm giving a second coat of white on our little flag on the top book. And again, speeding up that drying. And I was having a little trouble getting good coverage. It was probably because my paint was like really, really crazy consistency. And the fact that I was going over the red. So I did have to put like another coat on there. And you can see I'm struggling with that paint for sure. So I think it's good now, and I can go ahead and try to pull off my tape. This is really good painter's tape, and so it's giving me really crisp lines there. You can see when I peel it off. And now I can take off all of the painter's tape, including the little rectangle that I want to paint blue. So I'm making sure that's really good and dry so that I can start taping off to do the corner. And I'm just going to use some of this Dollar Tree painter's tape and just going to go around all 4 sides so that, you know, my paint doesn't bleed out of my design. And I'm going to go in with that agave blue that I used for one of my books and do that for the part of the flag. Now I thought about doing stencils with my Cricut and to paint stars on there, but I decided to do something a little bit different to kind of go with the nautical feel of this project. You know me, I like to do beach stuff. So that looks pretty good. And so this is my idea. I have these sea creature stencils that I got at the Dollar Tree, and there is starfish on there. So I thought I could use some of these little daubers from the Dollar Tree and some of that white chalk paint and try to stencil the starfish on in place of the stars. Now, I don't know if it's because my stencil was so small or generic looking, but I don't know if you can really tell that they're starfish. They kind of just look like stars. But whatever. I thought about gluing a starfish on there, but I kind of wanted it to be flat like it was the cover of a book. So I can fit about 4 of these little starfish stencils. And it's not going to be perfect. I'm just kind of daubing that on there. And you know me, you know I'm going to distress this, so it doesn't matter. But I'm trying my best. And these stencils are a little hard to use because the next image is like really right next to it. And there we go, 4 starfish. So my plan is to stack them like that, red, white, and blue, but you know I have to distress it because I have to make it look coastal, like it belongs in my house. So I'm using one of these chunky brushes from the Dollar Tree, dry, and just going over, this time with the ivory chalk paint. I am just done with that white chalk paint. And I like distressing with ivory. I think it looks good. And I just did like a thin coat all over, and then I grabbed a baby wipe and kind of spreading that out and taking off any of the excess and giving it that nice weathered look. And I'm going to use the ivory to distress both the red book and the blue book. Actually, the white book too. So I decided to go really heavy on the sides where there would be pages to try to make it, give it the appearance of pages. Like I think the little streaky brush strokes look like they could be pages. And then on the cover, I'm going more lightly and making that more of a bold red on the binding there. And then I am going to give this a distressing too on my flag. And then I'm going to also use this antique wax by Waverly. It's the brown. I also get that at Walmart, and to distress and kind of all over, and then especially the edges, gives it a nice weathered look. And I'm going to give that on the binding there too. And then I'm also going to give that on the pages. It kind of helps with the other distressing that I did to kind of make the pages look like they would be like actual pages and not just a square box. And then I'm going to use the red paint to try to paint where the book cover would be. Just kind of a little extra step there to try to make it look more like a book. But super easy little touch to add. And I'm going to do that on both sides. And I did a little bit too much there on the top, so I'm just fixing that. And see how that kind of looks like pages besides the cutout. But I really love how that turned out. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the blue one. I'm going to go in and distress with the ivory, harder on the sides and the back to make them look like pages. And go in with a baby wipe and spread that out, make that look good. and then light distressing on the front there. Then I'm going to go in with that antique wax again and do the same thing as I did before. Light on the front, heavy on the sides, and the back for the pages. And then kind of make it look like a book like I did before. So I'm going in with the blue paint along the top and inside and bottom of the sides. And then I'm going to go in, and you wouldn't think you could distress the white with ivory, but it actually gave it kind of a cool look. So that is what I did. And then I'm going to go in with the antique wax and same thing that I did on the others. Whenever you weather things with this antique wax, it comes out so cool. It's such a cool effect and so easy to do. I absolutely love it. I have a lot of coastal beach decor in my house, and this is going to look really nice. And again, I am just trying to go in and paint the cover on. To make it look like the other ones, like a book. Okay, I think that's enough distressing. And I want to print some Cricut vinyl to label my books, but Cricut was down for hours design space. So I decided to go ahead and work on something else. So I got this cute burlap with the little chevron red print at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use that to wrap around my books. And I kind of want it to be functional to hold all of these books together. And so I am going to bring it around and glue it to itself on the bottom with just hot glue. And I'm using some protection there because I do not want to burn myself on this part. And I'm just gluing that to itself to try to give the structure a little bit more stability, like it was really wrapped around there good. And this is the first time I've done the stacked books with these big trays like this, and I love how it turned out. They are just beautiful. Then I'm going to take some of this twine from the Dollar Tree and wrap that around the burlap ribbon that I already put on there. And I'm just going to kind of wind that around. It's going to help keep the books together as well and give it a nice little rustic touch. So I'm just kind of going around until I'm happy with it. And I think it needs just a little bit more. So I'm going to go around a few more times. And then I'm going to tie that into a knot. I'm kind of just slowly moving that to the front where I want it to be, tying that off into a knot. And then I thought, what else does it need? So I decided actually just to use that twine to make just a simple little easy bow. So I just tie that into a bow. Then I'm thinking about, how else do I want to decorate that? Then I decide to go back in and clip those off. And I got one of these cute little seahorse clothespins at my Dollar Tree, and their beach stuff that they had last month. And I'm just going to clip that onto my bow, and that will go with my little nautical feel for my books. Normally I would have went ahead and put my Cricut vinyl on before I did all that, but again, Cricut was down for hours. Design space, it was terrible. Okay, so I am ready to cut some vinyl to label my books. And I'm going to do white vinyl on the red book and the blue book. And then I'm going to do red vinyl on the white book. So I am just weeding this, and I get to like an O that just would not weed. And then I realized like it was the center of the O, like the outside of the O must have came off when I weeded it. So this is me digging in my trash, trying to find it. And surprise, I was able to find it, and I was able to save it. After all the waiting I did on Cricut Design Space, I did not want to have to mess with it any more than I had to. So now I'm going to go in and cut my red vinyl. And these are the sayings for the red book and the blue book. So I'm cutting those apart into two. And just scraping those onto my transfer paper. But I don't want to put them on yet because I think that the white book is going to have the longest saying, and that will help me align it on the left side. So I am just going in and weeding the design for the white book, which I did with red vinyl, and trying to make sure all the letters stay down this time. And we have success. I'm telling you, I love the skinny, which is the Ray Dunn font, but man, it can be really hard to work with sometime with vinyl. So I'm adding my transfer tape and scraping that on, and I'm going to do this one first because this was the longest saying for the side of the book to make sure that it fits. And it does. So if you haven't guessed, what it's going to say is from sea to shining sea. I thought that was really great because it not only is it patriotic, it's also, you know, with my coastal nautical theme of the books. I had one letter jump ship there, but I was able to save it again. And, oh, I just love how these books turned out. They're so cute. And if you were to buy this, it would be really expensive. The next coastal patriotic DIY might be my favorite. It's a beachside firework stand DIY. Let me show you how. Okay, let's get into it. I am going to try to make a firework stand out of two of these little wood trays from the Dollar Tree. That one there with the flowers on it was actually a test for sublimation on raw wood, and so it is perfect for this because I am going to paint it, and so win-win. I'm going to go in with this color is called Agave. It's a chalk paint from Waverly from Walmart. And I am going to go in and paint the bottom and the sides. That piece is going to be the bottom of my firework stand. And I was thinking that if I put the two together, then I can make it look like a functional firework stand. And I want to give it the coastal beachside vibe because that is how I decorate my house in Coastal Farmhouse. And so that is the plan. I got this idea from one of my viewers that was going to recreate my lemonade stand from my lemon tier tray into a fireworks stand. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. I have to have a fireworks stand. And on my seasonal display, I have one like major hole that I needed something for, and I thought this would be perfect. So on the other tray, I am just going on the insides, which will be the sides of it, and the outsides, because those will be visible, and then the top and the bottom, but not really the back. I have a plan for the back. And this chalk paint covers really well. You don't need very much. And I'm actually not going to do the top because I have a plan for the top as well. Now this project, it was so much fun. My son says it is the best project I've ever made. So I'm kind of obsessed with it as well. So this is my plan for the back of the firework stand, I just went on Google image search and typed in, I think, fireworks on shelves. And there wasn't a lot to choose from. There was maybe two. And I kind of picked my favorite one and then printed it out the same size as my tray. And then I'm going to Mod Podge the back of this tray. And then I'm just going to attach that paper that I printed out of my printer to the back of it. That way it'll look like that is the firework stand and all of those fireworks are on the shelves. I'm trying to, paper was pretty thin, so I'm trying to get that dried smoothly before I do Mod Podge over the top of it. And here I go over the top of it with a thin coat of the Mod Podge just to seal it down. And I'm really glad I came up with that idea because I don't think I would have been able to add enough detail to the back of that to make it look like a real fireworks stand. And I think that was like the perfect thing for the back of it. So my plan is to put it together like that, one going one way, one going the other. And then I want to use these big popsicle sticks from Walmart to do little sideboards for my popsicle stand. So I'm just measuring those and cutting them with scissors. And these popsicle sticks cut so easily with scissors. And then I want to use another one of those for the width of it, and that is going to be the top of the back of it. It's going to go right there. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to paint those side panels ivory. This is also chalk paint by Waverly. And I am going to make Cricut vinyl decals to go on that to make little labels. I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do on the front of the fireworks stand. I know I want to hand paint a sign there, so I'm kind of figuring out how big that could be. And I just put another coat of paint on the side panels, and I'm going to start working on the roof. I wanted it to have, like, you know how like firework stands have the red and white striped tent tops? I wanted it to look like that. And so I'm going to use these popsicle sticks. I kind of measured how many I would need for the width. And I can actually cut out two pieces out of one. So I'm just using my first piece that I measured and using that for reference to cut out the rest. I think it was a total, I needed 7 across to make the little awning. And so I'm just going to paint half of them ivory. And I'm going to paint the other half crimson, both chalk paints from Waverly. And then I'm going to alternate them, red, white, red, white, red, white. And that's, you know, also like the flag stripes too. So it's very fitting. And here is that crimson chalk paint. I've used this color combination on all of my coastal 4th of July decorations. The crimson, the ivory, and the agave, instead of using like the ocean or a more blue color, because it goes with my coastal vibe more in my house and my colors. And I really love how these 3 colors go together. I think they're so beautiful together. So those are good to go. And I am going to make some Cricut vinyl for those little side panels. And I'm going to test out this red removable vinyl from Dollar Tree. I didn't really want it to be removable, but that's what I had, and I wanted to try it out, so that's what we're going to do here. And so I'm just cutting that out with my Cricut, and I'm going to go in and weed that here. I was having trouble staying in frame here. And I printed out 2 words that will go down those signs that would remind me of a fireworks stand. So what I found about this removable vinyl is that it really wants to be removed. Like, it was a little tricky to weed it because it just, like, the letters like wanted to like jump off the backing paper. So I'm having to be really careful to try to keep it all aligned. And then I'm going to use some of this paper, transfer paper. I love this stuff. I get it on Amazon. I will post a link below. It is incredible. And I'm going to use that and cut the 2 words apart. And this is what I'm talking about. I didn't have to pull it off of the backing paper. It just came off all by itself. Like, it just jumped off. So my first word says rockets. And on the other side of the fireworks stand, I'm going to have it say sparklers. And I had a letter go down, but I was able to save it. And those words remind me of 2 things that would be like on signs advertising a fireworks stand. So I thought those would be cute little side panels to kind of box it in a little bit. And then I'm going to go in just with some Mod Podge and try to seal those vinyl pieces on because I don't want it to come off since they're removable. And I'm going to go in with some Cricut stencil vinyl, but you can use any vinyl. I just happen to have this. And I am going to cut out a stencil for the bottom. And I want it to be like a coastal beachside feel. And so I'm going to have it say Beachside fireworks. And I made fireworks like all like big bold letters, like it would be like on a fireworks stand where they're really trying to grab your attention. And then I did Beachside in more of a, you know, fancier script writing. And I'm just weeding out the words here instead of weeding off the background because I want to make a stencil so that I can hand paint the front of the sign. I love making stencils with my Cricut. It's like my favorite thing. I love hand painted wood. It's so pretty. And you gotta be careful, especially on like the cursive font where it's pretty thin like that, like that all the pieces stay on there. If not, you have to retrieve them and try to put them back in place. And so those are my 2 words. I'm just cutting those apart. And I am going to use that same paper, transfer paper. I have this like in the 6-inch and the 12-inch. I find I use my 6-inch way more. If you're going to get one, I would get the 6-inch for sure. But it does such a good job, and it doesn't cause any damage to any paint or anything like that, which is why I love it. And I'm just trying to measure where that should be and line that up and apply my stencil. And it was a bachelorette night, so I was trying to catch up on my trash TV recaps and stuff. I actually had to stop making this halfway through so I could go watch The Bachelorette and then come back and finish it. Oh, I love trash TV sometimes. Okay, so I am just using some painter's tape to make sure that I don't screw this up. And I'm going to go in with one of these little daubers from the Dollar Tree and that ivory chalk paint from Waverly and just start going over. I had to, since this was such a skinny cursive font, I really had to push it in there to make sure that the white paint, actually was going to make the letter whole. So I have to go over it just a couple of times. With the chalk paint until I get really good coverage. When I look at it, I can see that all the openings have some ivory paint in them. And sometimes to avoid bleeding, I'll use like the same base color first. But this attached pretty well to the sign, so I think I'm going to be able to get it on there with very minimal bleeding. And I'm just going to speed that up there with my heat gun. I also got this on Amazon, and I love it because it speeds up all of my projects. I'll post a link to that as well. And here we go. Let's see if it worked. There it is. And then when you do that, you have to weed out the vinyl stencil in between your letters to get your final product. And so mine's going to say Beachside Fireworks. Here, most of the things are either like, you know, on the mainland or beachside. So that's why I chose the word beachside. And then the fireworks I did in this really bold font. And I actually made it even like taller to like really stand out. And I am using that same transfer paper to put my stencil on. I'm going to rip off the top so I can align that exactly where I want it and not mess up my beach side. And I'm just going to secure that down. I'm going to go in and paint the fireworks word in the crimson red. So I am just using the painter's tape to kind of go around the edges where it's going to be close because I don't want to mess up any of my paint. And I'm just going to use one of those daubers on this one as well. And these are great for stencils, but if you don't have them, the little foam brushes that I use all the time too would totally work. This is just kind of fun to stipple on there. I was a little worried that you weren't going to be able to read this, the red paint over the blue, but it actually turned out really good. And I'm giving it a good coverage with that chalk paint. I'm just making sure that I got all the tops. I'm trying to be careful that I don't go over the top of my stencil and create a problem. And this glue gun eats batteries like crazy, and I know I'm going to need hot glue, so I'm changing out the batteries on that. And I am going to dry that fireworks painting. See how quickly that dried? You can like totally see it just transform. And it is ready to remove the stencil. And both of those words went on just beautifully. No bleeding at all. So Beachside Fireworks. That is going to be the bottom of the sign. And you know me, I like to go in and distress all my coastal pieces. So I'm just going to go in with this chunky brush from Dollar Tree and dry brush on a little bit of that ivory chalk paint all over to give it that coastal feel. And then I'm going to go in with a baby wipe and take off any extra distressing. And I'm also doing that there. That's going to be like the top shelf or the counter, I guess, of my fireworks stand. And anywhere that I think that it's going to be visible. And my plan is to attach that popsicle stick to the top, and then I'll have like an angled surface to put my awning on. And I'm just trying to determine how I'm going to attach it. And then I just determine like a thin bead of hot glue and just kind of have that hanging off the top like that. And I'm going to leave that all unfinished because you're not going to be able to see it underneath my awning. So I'm going to alternate the red and the ivory. And I just kind of, I'm trying to decide where to start. And I decide that that is the center. It actually wasn't quite the center. I was off a little bit, but it's okay, it works out. So I'm just doing a small bead of hot glue on the top and the bottom there to attach that popsicle stick. And this is the side that I was a little off on, so it overhangs a little bit, which made the other side a little shorter. So I probably should have started on one side instead of trying to guess the middle. But it's not like really obvious. And that is our little firework tent. And that's me trying to cut that popsicle stick now when it's already attached because I got it a little off. I was able to trim it down a tiny bit, but not really. I kind of just made more work for myself because then I had to sand it back down. And all that messing with it, that last one came off, so I'm just gluing that back down again. And that is going to be the top of our fireworks stand. So I want it to go together like that. So I'm going to use a combination of this wood glue from Dollar Tree and hot glue for the long-term, fast-term hold. And just pop that on there. And we have a fireworks stand. So these are the side panels that I made with my Cricut vinyl. Actually, it was my Dollar Tree vinyl, I guess. And I'm just going to glue one of those to each side, kind of overlapping the inside of the tray. To give it like a store vibe there. And I'm just making sure that roof is on there, just putting a little bit more hot glue on there and making sure that everything is secure. But then I was like, I need fireworks to decorate my little fireworks stand. So I'm going to use popsicle sticks and just cut out some little rectangles. And I went online and found like some images for like some old-fashioned fireworks. I knew black cat fireworks, so I did a couple black cats, and then I just did another random firework, like an old style box cover, I guess you would say. And I measured my popsicle sticks, and then it was a challenge, but I printed the images out the same width as the popsicle sticks, and so I am just cutting those out. The first two I painted the backs red. I'm not sure why I even did that because you totally can't see it, so that's why I only did it on the first one. And so I am cutting out, these are the little, I can't even remember what they said, like Big Bang fireworks or something like that. It was a cute little cover. And I couldn't really find anything, so I kind of just went on Google Images, and Pinterest had a lot of good things to choose from, and just saved a couple images. And I am just going to hot glue those onto the popsicle sticks to make some little tiny firework packages to go on the counter of our firework stand. And these turned out so freaking cute. Like, I'm so glad that I added all these extra details. So I got those 2 packages of fireworks completed. They're so cute. And then I'm going to cut out the black cat fireworks. And honestly, getting them to print that small was was a challenge for sure. I was doing it on Canva and it was too small, so I had to do 2 at a time because of the width was too small for Canva. And just trimming those to make sure that they're all lined up. And there's our little black cat fireworks. And I did 2 packages of those as well. Then I thought these beads might be fun to make, try to make like bottle rockets for our fireworks stand. So I thought the combination of these like long beads from the Dollar Tree and some toothpicks, that I might be able to do like the structure of like a bottle rocket. That's what I was going for. And then I'm trying to decide if I should like glue it to the inside of the bead or the outside of the bead. I end up doing the outside of the bead because that is actually more like how a bottle rocket is designed. And so I'm making a couple of them. And I just trim off the sharp end of the toothpick. And I'm just attaching those with hot glue. I was going to kind of leave it like that because they are bright colors, but then I was like, you know, well, bottle rockets are covered in paper. So I just went and found some random like scrapbook paper that I had laying around that were, you know, 4th of July colors. These 2 different reds, and I just cut out a little piece and hot glued that around there to make that look more like a bottle rocket. And then I'm just going to use, you know, a different pattern for the second one, so they're a little bit different. And you just need a tiny piece of paper. You could really use anything. And I'm just gluing that on as well. And we have 2 bottle rockets for our fireworks stand. All right. I thought that I needed 1 more piece. So I went and found an image of sparkler box and printed that out the same size as the popsicle stick. And I'm just gonna also glue that on the popsicle stick. And you gotta be careful because the popsicle sticks want to split when you cut them. So I was kind of fighting with that. Luckily, they're really cheap, so if you screw them up, it's not a big deal. And so now we also have a little package of sparklers for a fireworks stand, but I don't want them to be all like loose on there. I want them to stay in place, so I'm just using hot glue to glue those in place. I'm putting like 1 bottle rocket on each side, and then I'm going to glue down 2 of the little firework packages. That 1 bottle rocket wanted to fall over, so I'm just gluing that to the back as well. And I'm going to glue down my little sparklers over here. And I'm so glad I added these little details to it. I think it just totally took it up a notch. And I am obsessed with this fireworks stand. I love it. Now, wait around to the end, to the final reveal, and you'll see how I put it in my decorations and how adorable it looks. And I'm just going in, and I forgot to distress over the vinyl on the sides and the roof, and they looked a little too clean. And so I'm just going in with that dry chunky brush from Dollar Tree and distressing it a little bit and going over it with a baby wipe. The last 3 coastal patriotic DIYs are a set of DIY buoys decorated to look patriotic. Let me show you how I put those together. Okay, the next project, I wanted to try to make buoys out of these foam blocks from the Dollar Tree. Now, they have two different kinds that are like this. They're that real soft green foam. One has like 4 packages in one package, but this is the one that's all one solid piece, and I thought I could use this little putty knife from the Dollar Tree and carve it. Now, these carve almost too well, so you gotta be really careful. What I did was just draw a square there on the top, and then I am shaving those off in like a triangular pattern, and I'm trying to align my lines there around the bottom of where I shaved, which was a little tricky. And so then I'm just cleaning it up with a sanding block from the Dollar Tree and trying to carve that a little bit more. I thought this would be a really cheap alternative for a way to make buoys. And I'm so glad I tried it. It's for $1 a buoy, like it's an amazing price. And I want to give them like a coastal 4th of July vibe. So there is the first one. And I'm going to have to carve out a hole in the top of the buoy so that I can tie a rope on there. So I'm just going to use one of these dowels from the Dollar Tree, push it through there. It's so soft, and just kind of wiggle it around to try to make the hole a little bit bigger. And this was messy. I'm not going to lie. Like that powdery stuff that comes out of it when you carve it. And so again, I'm putting a square on top so I will know where to carve, and then I'm just carving down and out. And I kind of do alternating sides first, and then I do the 2 sides, and I try to align those. I don't do a very good job of aligning them, but in the end, you really can't tell. And the sanding block definitely helps too, because it kind of carves and smooths everything out. And then I'm using the dowel to cut a hole in that one as well. And each one of these turned out like a little bit different size, which kind of adds to the appeal. You know, a lot of times buoys are very imperfect and dented, and so this was a very forgiving project, thank goodness. And so I'm doing the same thing there on buoy number 3. But I'm like super fast at it now. And cleaning that up. And popping a hole in there. And we have 3 buoys. Now, I didn't really know if paint was going to stick to these or not. I doubted it. So I'm going to go in and put a coat of Mod Podge all over. And hopefully that will give it some kind of a surface for the paint to adhere to. I know there is like a product maybe at Michael's that it allows you to like seal the foam and you can paint over it. But I'm doing this on a Dollar Tree budget. So Mod Podge it is. And I wasn't sure how long this was going to take to dry or anything, but I didn't really hurry it. I went ahead and did this and then left this for part of a day so that it was really good and dry when I came back in so that I could try to paint it. And I'm just doing 1 coat all over. It may have worked better if I was able to do more than 1 coat, but I really wanted to get on with this project. And I'm doing all the sides and the bottoms. And just a good healthy coat. And this project was totally an experiment. I had no idea if this was going to work, but it worked in my head. So I was like, okay. For the top of where I have like my coastal firework display, I was going to do like a pennant banner or something like that. But I didn't want it to cover up that beautiful flag that I made. And so I thought it would be fun to hang some buoys on each side. That'll totally go with my theme. Okay, they're dry. So now we're going to go in and paint them with this ivory chalk paint. I want to do that as a base coat, and it worked. I wasn't getting great coverage, but I was getting some coverage with the ivory chalk paint. So I'm kind of doing two sides at a time, the top and the bottom, so that I can dry those, and then I'll be able to turn it over and do the rest of the buoys too. And this chalk paint really does stick to anything. It may have worked without the Mod Podge, I'm really not sure, but it just felt like an unpaintable surface, so I thought that would definitely help it out. Now, when you put paint on this too, it's very slow to dry, just like the Mod Podge. And I'm speeding it up, and now I'm going in and painting the other two sides with that ivory chalk paint. And I plan on doing the same color scheme that I've done for the rest of my coastal 4th of July, the crimson, agave, and the ivory. But I know that I want a little bit of ivory on each sign, so this was a great base coat. And I'm just speeding up that drying process. Every time I painted these, it was a little challenging to get it good and dry. But my coverage wasn't quite what I wanted, so I am going in. I had to crack open a new bottle of the ivory chalk paint. I upgraded sizes there because this is like my 3rd bottle, like in a month. I use a lot of the ivory chalk paint. I love it. And I gave it a second coat of that paint, and I am giving that a dry. And then going on my other sides again. The carving of these was fairly easy compared to the painting because it did require a lot of paint. And we have 3 buoys. Now this one I thought it'd be kind of fancy and use my painter's tape to try to do like a flag stripe pattern. So I am going to use the painter's tape to make lines all the way up and down it, and hope that the paint stays on the foam. A little worried, to be honest. And I am just trying to get those lined up. And I kind of had to pinch it because of the weird angles up there on the corners. But then when you get down to the square part of it, it got a lot easier. And I'm just doing those flag stripes all the way down. Now, I know that the paint and the foam, like, it's very, very touchy. So I think the painter's tape is about all I'm going to be able to do. I don't think I'm going to be able to do any stencils or really vinyl on this. I don't think it would really stick. And so this one I thought, I'm just kind of winging it. I thought, the top of it can be one color, and then I can do a stripe of a net of white, and then I can do like another color stripe, and then another white stripe, and then maybe the bottom a different color. And then on this one I thought, well, maybe I'll just make the bottom of this one a different color. And we are ready to start adding some color to these. I'm going to use that crimson chalk paint to go all over my one that I want to have the flag stripes. And this worked well, except for the fact that there's going to be a lot of damage from the paint tape, taking the paint off of the foam. And this may have been a little bit too intricate of a pattern, but we got it to work. Or I got it to work. I don't know who this we is. So I gave that one good all over with that crimson chalk paint, and this one I decided I would make the top of it red. And so I'm just painting that top part. It was really kind of hard to go over the little holes and not fill those up with paint. It may have been better to wait till the end to poke the holes in them, to be honest. And then I decided I wanted to make that stripe red as well. So I'm going to paint that on there, and I'm just kind of doing one color at a time while I have it open. And this one, I decided I wanted to make the bottom of this one red. I'm making sure my hands are free of paint. I don't want to get red paint on the top of this one. And after I put all that ivory chalk paint on there, getting coverage with the red really wasn't that hard. And we are done with the crimson there, and now it's time for the agave color. I thought this one could have an agave top, and then it'll have that little white stripe where the painter's tape is, and then a red bottom, kind of like a color blocked buoy. And this one, I'm leaving it kind of plain because I want to put a number on it. You know, a lot of times the buoys have little numbers hand painted on them, and I thought I could make that like a 4 for the 4th of July. So this one I thought could have the agave color on the bottom, and then it'll have that white stripe, and then the top is the crimson red. Kind of a different pattern than the one that I just did, and kind of opposite end colors. And these required a lot of drying to get that paint to dry on the foam. And now it is time to see if that paint is going to stay on there. And it was a little tricky to get the paint tape off of these. And there was definitely bleeding because the surface is so irregular, which is kind of to be expected. And that one took off all the paint on one side. And I was like, oh no. I tried, in the bottom row, did the same thing. I tried making sure that I had this tape on there as little as possible. I got a lot of damage on that one too. But I think it was inevitable. I don't know. I don't know if I would have used more Mod Podge, if that would have came off better, but I pretty much sustained damage on all of them. So I'm going to go in with that ivory chalk paint again and try to repair all my damage. And this one had that red line in between, so then I have to go in and fix that as well. And touch that up. And then this one needed, the stripe pattern definitely needed a lot of touching up because of all the bleeding. But again, these are buoys. They're not supposed to look perfect, so as long as I can get it fairly good, you'll be able to tell that that is a stripe pattern. And then I have to repair like the lines where it took off all of the paint. And I was able to cover that you could see that there was an indentation where the foam did rip a little bit. But again, imperfections on the buoys actually kind of adds more to the effect. And here I am trying to paint on a number 4. I knew I couldn't really do a stencil. It didn't really turn out like I'd pictured in my head. So then I tried to make it like wider, more bold. And giving that a dry, and then I'm just like, oh, this is why I don't hand paint things freehand. Because I totally didn't like how that 4 turned out. I couldn't figure out how to make the 4. I know it would be more like a stencil 4. So I'm going to turn it around and try again on the back and just do a skinnier one with maybe my 4 kind of slanted up, and I like that one better. Then I'm going to go over with one of those chunky brushes from the Dollar Tree, dry brush on that ivory chalk paint. And I'm just going around all of the corners. And I love how that brought out like so much detail and made them look old and weathered. And that step definitely added to the appeal of these things. and it covered any imperfections on them as well. Then I'm going to go through and weather my number 4 one. I'm just going to leave the 4 I don't like on the back. You're not going to be able to see it. And again, I really had to use my heat gun a lot to dry these because it wasn't a great surface to paint on for sure. Then I'm going to use some of this decorative rope from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to use the end with the tape on there to try to fish that through. And sometimes I had to use a dowel to help it through as well. And this one, I don't think that the opening was big enough, and so I just tried to make it a little larger and slide the rope through. Since I have that tape on one end, I'm just going to go ahead and string them all with that because that goes through a little easier than the raw rope. And then I will cut them all apart and tie them all separately. And I would definitely say that this buoy experiment with the foam from the Dollar Tree was a success. It was messy in carving them, and they did take a lot of paint. And the painter's tape did like to take the foam off, but they actually turned out really cute, and they were the perfect final touch for my Coastal 4th of July display to help celebrate Independence Day. So I'm just going to kind of cut off what I think how long it would be and just tie that in a knot. And I'm going to do the same thing with the second one here and tie that off. And that one I thought I did a little too long, so I'm just going to move it down a little bit and trim off the ends on both of those. And it's time to tie my number 4 and trim that one as well. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Here is the final reveal of all 10 DIYs.
Things catch fire in America.